Welcome to this episode of Trojan Poetry. This is our Halloween edition, ladies and gentlemen.
Our second Halloween edition.
John, take off the mask. You're scaring the children. Hey, we'll be here next week. Okay, so this week we have a poem. Notice we're both wearing ties, too. That's part of the costuming here. We are reading a poem in honor of All Hallows Eve, the Day of the Dead, or maybe the day before or after the dead.
Yeah.
Monsters.
Now, Mike has not ever seen this poem before.
Excuse me, I'm trying to read the poem here. Monsters by Dorothea Lasky. Are you ready for this?
Oh, I'm
I've never
ready.
seen
I'm
this
ready
poem
to
before.
see you read it.
And I read, "This is a world where there are monsters. There are monsters everywhere, raccoons and skunks. There are possums outside. There are monsters in my bed. There's one monster. He's my little one. I talk to my little monster. I give my little monster some bacon, but that does not satisfy him. I tell him, shh, shh, don't growl, little monster. And he growls. Oh boy, does he growl. And he wants something from me. He wants my soul. And finally, giving in, I give him my gleaming soul. And as he eats my gleaming soul, I am one with him. And stare out his eyepits, and I see nothing but white. And then I see nothing but fog, and the white I had seen before was nothing but fog. And there is nothing but fog out the eyes of monsters." I have to say that word eyepits.
Yes.
That's a good one.
That is a creepy
That really jumped
word.
out. So
Yeah.
my question, two questions. First of all, why does she feed him bacon? That's the most important one.
Mm-hmm.
And secondly, raccoons, skunks, and possums, there are monsters in my bed. What's interesting, though, is until she gets to his eye pits, she doesn't describe what the monster looks like at all. I mean, there's no description at all, no adjectives, no nothing.
Mm-hmm. Well, he's little. He's a
Yes,
little one.
other than he's little. So she leaves it completely up to you to picture him.
Right.
And she describes the raccoons and skunks and the possums.
Very
and
concrete.
there are monsters everywhere. So does this monster look like them? I don't even know why this bothers me so much, but the monster's not described.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is this whole fading to white and fog again. There's nothing but fog out the eyes of monsters, which is her soul. And then is her soul the fog that's escaping? John?
I don't know.
Please
You tell
enlighten
me.
us. So those are the things that really stood out. And why can't he growl? I mean, come on, he's going to eat your soul anyway.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? She doesn't do much to stop him. So does she have weird rules of politeness in her house that only monsters can only talk to her? And she does describe her soul as gleaming twice, which is the total opposite of fog. So then I wonder, how does her soul suddenly be transformed into, so he eats it and then it becomes fog and it comes back out of his eyes? I'm just trying to get a concrete grasp on what physically happens. So it's a gleaming soul, he eats it, it comes back out as fog.
Well, I think
and then she is the fog everywhere. There is nothing but fog out the eyes of monsters.
I guess I thought, like, you see nothing but fog out of the eyes of
So she's
monsters.
still in the eye pits.
That's how I
She's
was
not
interpreting
escaping.
it.
Okay,
That's how I
so
was
what
interpreting
what
it.
stood out to you then?
Well, I went looking for poems about monsters for Halloween, and obviously came across this one, and the strange, very simple language, and the fairy tale-like nature of it. Right, and I like those kind of puzzle-like poems where it seems simple, but then it gets super deep and complex as the more you read about it. And I began to, I guess I wondered, they said there were monsters in my bed. There was one monster, he's my little one. That made me think of a child. So I'm thinking, okay, like my little monster, right, your little child that you love, and you feed it bacon, but it's not happy. And you try not to get it to growl because you're trying to teach it to be,
A
good.
nice monster.
Yeah, but then, it wants my soul. So that idea that, children devour their parents as they grow, and then they're devouring you, and then you're in them and you're seeing out of their eyes, that could be one way to interpret it.
Yeah.
I was talking to one of our colleagues, and she began to think of it as like an abusive relationship, right? Like...
There's one monster, right? It goes from there are monsters in my bed, plural, to there's one. He is
Right.
my little one.
Right. And I guess I don't see that so much because he's my little one. But if it's like an abusive boyfriend or somebody in a relationship, I don't know why you would say a little one, unless you're trying to say it is a little you know, I mean, I don't know. But I like the ambiguity of that relationship, because then you have to fill in the blanks. Like you said, there's no real physical description, so the reader is left really to fill it in. But I really did hear, like in my head, a mother's voice. There's a word. This is a world where there are monsters, right? Like a warning at the beginning of a fairy tale, like Little Red Riding Hood or something.
Yeah.
And then at the end, I guess what I started to think about is that idea of the concrete. And you mentioned the word gleaming, and how the word gleaming is the opposite of fog. But I would say too, the word white, right? So if something is white, it's just solid white, right? It's concrete. There's no nuance. But then when you're in the monster, you see fog, which is maybe a more nuanced kind of gray,
Different shades,
right?
blending
And
together.
you kind of grow into the mind of the monster and the eyes of the monster, and I guess defining a monster as somebody who sees nuance, which
Because you've been absorbed. It's like the monster has taken you and absorbed it into itself, and now you're looking out through its eyes.
right. And so like a monster would, like, the person is clearly trying to take care of the monster, right? She's trying to feed it bacon, it's in her bed, right? But then it eats her. So that kind of gray area of something that is cared for but something that devours you is like a hazy, foggy.
Yeah. Or she's
Kind of
sympathetic.
thing, right?
It's almost like now that she sees through the monster's eyes, she realizes that the
Right.
monster can't see anything around it. It doesn't understand what's going on necessarily.
Or it
'cause
doesn't
it's
see
covered
just
by
white,
fog.
right? Like
Yeah.
maybe she sees the white as pure, like she sees the monster as pure, and she's having to rethink.
Yeah, her take on what this monster is all about.
Right.
And is there any coming back from that? Or does she even want to? You know,
Well,
does she
yeah.
want to come back out of the monster and go back into her soul, into her own body? Or is she there forever?
I
You
mean,
know,
there are
does
monsters.
that even matter? Or,
Yeah. I mean, can you? Once you notice the nuance, can you go back to?
Right. I see nothing but white, and then I see nothing but fog.
But then she
And
realizes
the white I had seen before was
was
nothing but
fog.
fog. So she begins to see
she kind of
nuance
tricked herself
and-
into seeing just white.
Right. And so
Right.
maybe she doesn't want to go back.
Right.
She's
And
stuck
somehow
in,
the gleaming, because I guess that would make sense. Like the gleaming soul mixed with gleaming would create a fog-like kind of shadowy, right? I mean,
glimmery kind of an
yeah,
idea. Yeah.
right. Not
Yeah.
a solid white. But I also I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was interested in the way he wants my soul, right? 4 syllables, kind of the center of the poem, contrasted with the 21 syllables of the second to last line, where she gets to that complexity of the white is gray and that, right?
Everything
So,
blends together.
yeah, kind of looking at just the very sharp contrast of the lengths of the lines.
Right, and before that, it seems very concrete. I can picture it somewhat. She's doing things, physical actions, and then after that, it turns into this crazy, gleaming white fog. Everything is
Right.
mixing together, and it's almost like she's fading out or something like that.
Right.
Yeah, very
So-
interesting, very creepy.
Yeah, and so then I kind of was, looking around, and there's she's online. You can see her giving a speech about beasts and monsters, and how poetry makes us human. And there's audio of her reading the poem, so I'll put that online. But then I found an interview where it's kind of interesting, I think, and I have a quote from the interview, and you have it there too. And she says that she basically, to set up the quote, she wants poetry to be demonic. And then she says, I mean demon in a loving way. It's not totally evil. It's a demon who doesn't always want to hurt you, just one who is looking through the window pane at night, studying you, watching you in the mirror. The demon as Mercury, as trickster. It's an intense instinct, a drive. The red eye, the cauldron of morning, as Plath wrote. This sense of the demonic is beautiful because it has to care about who it's targeting. It has to reflect and absorb what their weaknesses are. It has to attract them. It has to work itself into a form that someone will want to pick up. That's what I've always wanted poems to do. I want them to be attractive and entertaining and seemingly simple, using language and imagery that people can easily understand. But once you're in the poem, you're trapped. It locks the door and tells you what it wants to say. So I really like that, because that's the kind of poetry I like.
Yeah,
Right?
that's
It
right
lures
up your
you
alley.
in,
It seems simple.
and then
Right.
slams the door and you're stuck.
And that's actually physically what happens in this poem,
Right.
right? She gets devoured, and then she's in the eye pits, and she's stuck in the monster.
Right. So I thought that was maybe a quote that would help us kind of think about.
Well, that totally fits. It's almost as if she wrote this poem directly before or after saying
Right.
that, you know?
Right, right. So
Follows
you
the
never know
same-
what you'll find. I'll put a link to that interview too.
All right, thanks for watching. Please join the conversation in the comments on YouTube or on Twitter at Trojan Poetry DGN. Also, check out our website at trojanpoetrydgn.blogspot.com.